I know I'm later getting this out than a teenage girl after homecoming, but hey, better late than never. Am I right, Rachel? You know that I am. I want to talk to you about the college industrial complex. Now, in years past, and I'm talking from probably the late 1700s, clear up to about roughly 1980s when things started changing, college was very, very important and very difficult. This was for the affluent and those that really needed to pursue a higher level of education. And I don't know initially that a lot of that had to do with their quote-unquote jobs. The whole structure of things changed. America used to be an agricultural-based society. So it was the affluent who sent their children to college, and they became statesmen and politicians. And, you know, you had to know what you're talking about. You're taking stuff like Latin and advanced mathematics, you know, and just astronomy, what they knew of it, and just on and on and on. It was difficult, man, and it was expensive. Some things never change. By the time I was wrapping up my high school career in the early 90s, school counselors were pushing hard to get kids to pick a college to enroll in. Because without college, you basically had no path forward. That's the way they sold it anyway. Now, that wasn't true. It wasn't true then and isn't true now. Definitely not now. We'll get to that in a second. The fact of the matter, they pushed, man. They pushed hard. And basically, if you wanted a higher income job, you know, we're talking like 6 figures upwards. And even, you know, at that time, the higher tens of thousands, if you wanted an annual income like that, you pretty well had to go to college. Employers wanted to see that you could stick to something and that you could figure out the ins and outs of it and hopefully get some kind of basis and founding of education in your chosen profession. The trouble with that is Wall Street got involved, and soon after, the United States federal government. The average cost for a college education in 1995 was about $13,000. And that's not cheap by any means, but it's by no stretch of the imagination what it costs present day. And you were still learning at that time. Well, a lot of people didn't have all that money in one clump, and so they had to borrow it. Well, these loans became lucrative business. Loans that were to be paid back with interest, mind you. And Wall Street got involved. And anytime there's money changing hands here, well, there's a bet on that money. And you take a risk. And you get involved and gamble whether or not they pay that back. And then they were shorting it. And then all the tangled mess that went on. And it didn't take long at all for this whole monster to start steamrolling. And pretty soon, lobbyists convinced the United States government to back these loans. So the taxpayer's on the hook. And that makes them virtually foolproof. Because if you can't pay your college loan, well, we'll go after the U.S. government to pay it, and they'll come after you. See how this works? College now, I think the average, I want to say it's around $40-something thousand for your run-of-the-mill college education. The average person, takes them about 21 years to repay that with interest. So this business of whatever they call the term, this forestalling, you know, this pushing back. I just can't afford it right now. And you can't when you're starting out. You don't have that higher income job. So they push it back and push all the while. That's accruing interest. All the while, you still owe, and the amount's getting higher. And the trouble with that is the money that young people put towards paying off their college degrees, well, that money could have been to start a family, to buy a home, to buy cars, to buy tangible goods that you need, in America at least, to survive. But you're pushing all that off. You definitely ain't going to afford a family when you got $60,000 of college debt hanging over your head. How you going to do that? It's this monster, this tangled web of mess. And 60,000 is probably a conservative estimate. Furthermore, companies realize these are college kids. college-age kids. And you don't have a lot of worldly experience when it comes to finances and things. So what do? They start setting up tables outside of the entrances. So you got your Citibank and your Wells Fargo, and you get you a credit card. It could be helpful for those unexpected expenses. MasterCard, come on. Visa, it's just for emergencies. Oh, college-age kid. You mean I can pay for the product, aka beer, and I don't have to pay? I mean, I get the card back? Oh, charge her up, partner. Now you have even more debt with more interest, really high interest rates now. All this stuff's got to be repaid. This whole tangled up mess of an institution, and I'm talking from kindergarten to 12 and from college entry to college exit, it's an outdated model. It doesn't work. And now colleges are in on the game. The costs have gone up and up and up. And that, what was it, 13,000 in 1995? That shot through the roof, man. Because they found out there's a whole administrative part of it that they can get to. And some of these administrators are making more than the professors. Well, somebody's got to pay for all this. So the cost of tuition goes up. And the administrators are just counting beans. They do the same thing at the high school level. When my daughter was graduating high school, and they were pushing hard for her to go to college. And honestly, admittedly, I told her, you might consider it. There'll never be a better time to go than right after high school. I wasn't thrilled about the idea of her going to college because college isn't an institution of higher learning anymore. But like I was saying earlier, so they realize they can make money on top of money on top of money from the unsuspecting kids. And then you got classes like comparative literature and gender studies and history, English. What are you going to do with those degrees? I mean, at least the history and the English, I guess you could become a teacher. That's about all you could do with them. Comparative literature, huh? Interesting. I talked to one guy that I went to high school with, and he said when he went to college, he actually took bowling as a class. Why the hell? But they make these requirements. You've got to meet these requirements. And somehow, out of the choices that were available, I don't need any of these, but I guess I'll take bowling. That seems easy, and I can breeze through that and work on my other stuff. That is actually important. That was clear back in the 90s. It's way worse than that now. And these unsuspecting kids, and moreover, they're outdated thinking parents that just drive the point home. You have to go to college. If you want any kind of chance in the world, you have to go to college. You have to. But this isn't 1995 anymore, and it darn sure ain't 1965. What employers want to see is that you know what you're doing at least halfway. You know, the base subject at hand. They want some familiarity with it. Ideally, they want experience. Well, you don't have that when you're starting out. So it used to be they kind of substituted the college piece for the experience piece. But there were paths forward, although they were difficult, for somebody that didn't go to college. And what that meant was you got in on the ground floor of the company, maybe the loading dock or whatever, and you got promoted over that. And then you went to ordering and order fulfillment, and then you're graduating up, so you know the inner workings and the nuts and bolts of a company, and by the time you get into some kind of administrative state, you have a familiarity, you know what's going on in the company. Rather than taking, and they tried this for a goodly 2 decades probably, and it still goes on to some degree, of plucking the college kids out of college, and the more expensive the college and the more prestigious the college, the more this happens. So they pluck the kid out of college and drop him into a mid-level executive position in the company. He has no basis. He has there's nothing other than what college taught him, and that wasn't much. But he doesn't know the ins and outs of the ordering fulfillment system and how this company works and where does the product come from and all all the different sources of materials and boxing and shipping. He doesn't know any of that. But they put him in a position where now he can do some real damage. It's not a recipe for success. And neither is college, present day. Like I said, this whole model needs to be torn out, destroyed. The ashes burnt, the destruction burned, and the ashes buried underneath the part where they put nuclear waste. I don't know what, it's a horrible system. At one time, it kind of sort of worked, and you learned some things. By the time I rolled through high school, it was brutal, absolutely brutal. The time wasted, and you sit through this crap, and the advanced kid is punished, and the slow kid is punished. It's for the median, the C average student, who with a little effort he can get it and turn in his C-rated paper, and he's going to be an average Joe. He's going to do average work at an average company and have an average life, and that's how the system went. And the whole dynamics have changed now. You can learn coding and certain engineering. You can learn a vast portion out at home. You don't need the expensive degrees. And employers have figured this out. Can you do the job? Here's a competency test right off the hop. Well, you aced it. Oh, you obviously has some kind. At every job you get, you're going to have some kind of onboarding where you learn what the hell you're doing, even if it's McDonald's. You have to learn the systems and the processes. The trash goes here. We keep the French fries here. You got to learn that stuff at every level. And this business of plucking kids out of college and putting them in mid-management, that's just a bad idea, man. And they found that out really quickly. Point being, you don't need college anymore like you once did. A specialty profession, maybe a doctor, a lawyer, but we don't really need any more lawyers in the entire world. So we can do away with that. Certain engineering, there's very limited, very few things that you can't. You got the whole world's knowledge right in this little cube that you very likely are using to watch this rambling right here. Whole system's broken, but they figured out how to strap these kids with crushing financial debt. $80,000, $160,000, $240,000, and they come out and they're making minimum wage or slightly above. And there's no shot at paying for that. And now the kids, what do the kids do? They turn to the federal government. You got to help us out. Somebody's got to help us out, bail us out. Who racked up all this money and why? And the parents that encouraged them to do it. At one time, what you're thinking was correct. It's not that way anymore. Without a clear focus and a clear path, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do college, but only to get here. It's still a terribly harmful thing, a waste of time. I mean, meanwhile, Joe Schmo's coming out of high school and he's got a lawn mowing business, and in the 4 years you were dinking-dunking around in a classroom, Joe Schmo built his lawn business up, sold it, started another one. Now he knows how to do it and do it quick. He's making money, baby. You're piling up debt. What's the real path forward? You tell me. You can put it in the comments. Good in the comments. I always read them. Almost always respond to them. Because I like the interchange of that. Tell me if I'm wrong. Or if I'm right. Or your thoughts on it. Doesn't matter. That's what the comment section's for. It's my take on it. I appreciate your time. I do. I thank you for watching. And I'll see you next time.